Hello and welcome to an overdue update about my grader. In this video I will explain why you see all those grader parts on my desk, what I'm planning to do with them, also the reason why you haven't seen any updates from me recently. And so will I ever get this back together? We'll see. But first off, some progress reports of the last weeks. So today, after seemingly forever without an update, I just wanted to give you a quick heads up what's going on. So I had a lot of problems with my electronics. I tracked that down to probably a number of issues. So the cable to my LED completely melted. I think the insulation has been pinched either by assembly or by the operation of the grader, so that is scrap, rubbish. And then the electronics still didn't work. The servo were really jittering and it was terrible, but it all worked fine on the bench. So I tracked that down to my very powerful front motors. So I used the standard eBay gear motor and I put slot car motors in. Heaps of power, but I'm guessing the current, or I was guessing the current is too high and I got a lot of interference, and I hooked up a small cheap oscilloscope, like one of those cheap units from eBay, and with that I was able to confirm that indeed there's a tremendous amount of noise on the signals that my Arduino electronics are supposed to evaluate. So I'm not quite sure what's going on. I will resolder these capacitors and hope that improves things. Also, it's not quite clear because the standard receiver, the Turner G9X receiver, a good receiver but not the best of the best, has no problems with the interference from those motors. So why does my electronic algorithm have a problem with that? So I will have to figure that out. Then I noticed that the shaft has play, always had play. It's just the bushing. The grader is relatively heavy in the front, so I was expecting that to wear out, but it just adds to the whole annoyance of the situation. So these motors, very powerful, high current, lots of interference. So if I can't get those motors to work by resoldering the capacitors, and also not by improving my electronic algorithm, or the algorithm in my electronics, I'm considering going back to brushless motors. I had previously had those, wasn't really happy because the starting performance, as you probably know, of these sensorless brushless motors leaves a lot to be desired. But I can actually mount, now that I have wheels with a stronger offset, I can mount these 2205 motors inside the uprights, or that's what I hope I can, and they should have plenty of power. But of course that also needs brushless ESCs. I had some very simple ones before. Now I'm have bought these Emacs, two different versions, not very expensive, Simon K software. So those are originally quadcopter ESCs, but Simon K software allows you to program them into forward and reverse using the Emacs or Simon K program card. So that's an idea. Just for size comparison, those were the motors that had poor starting performance, and those are the ones that I'm considering now. Well, that's the largest version that I'm considering, but there are others as well. So I have now quite a collection of brushless motors that no one who does earth movers should really have, but there you go. The problem with these larger motors is they come with a 3mm shaft. My gear train expects a 2mm shaft as input, so that's also not straightforward. So problems all around. If you don't have problems, you're making your own. So we'll see how that goes. Also, the shaft has quite a bit of play. So I have some ball bearings, but I'm not sure whether I can get out the bushing here, the Gleitlager in German, for my German viewers, and I'm not sure I can replace that with a ball bearing. We'll see. So again, lots of unknowns, and that's all part of the reason why you haven't seen much of me or my grader. As you can also see, the grader is disassembled. These are the two lift servos, the circle side shift, and these are going to go into intermediate storage. Then here is the moldboard side shift guide, which I did with these grooved ball bearings. Works really well on a clean desk, but just as I feared, they don't work very well in the sand. But an even larger problem than the ball bearings themselves was the problem that because they are so large, I can no longer have the rubber. I have a rubber strip here that protected this little gap between the actual moldboard and the back plate, like so, and all those little stones fell in there, and yeah, just don't do that, kids. So that will have to go. Instead, I'm going to use this rather substantial angle section of brass and recreate the angle section that I had in plastic, which was too weak. And I'm going to kind of recreate that with brass. So that's going to be a little bit fiddly, but should be possible. This whole center section is going to be replaced. So what I took out is this chunk of mild steel. So that goes onto the into the store. So I might at some point need some more weight, and I will replace the whole center section with a box section out of mild steel. Mild steel because that makes it easier for me to work with, and I don't really need stainless steel. You can see that it has slightly rounded corners, which makes the mounting of this thin section ball bearing really easy. So I clamp it down here, or I clamp the inner ring of those. There are two ball bearings in there, and this gives a really nice fit, much better than I was able to do with the aluminium, because the aluminium was too large, so I had to file it down, which introduced errors, and the mounting was never really as good as I wanted to. So I'm going to revise that. On the top here you have cutouts that allow me to route cables. I will have to put those into the mild steel section as well, which hopefully won't be too much of a problem. And then, because the mild steel is considerably heavier than the aluminium, I hope that I can maintain the weight of the grader, because in off-road machines weight is traction, and use the inner section, the inner volume of the box section to store my electronics. So basically I have here my Arduino, if I can focus, and just as a, this is how it's going to look. So I have the Arduino inside the section. It's going to be a tight fit, but it's going to fit. But for the moment I'm a little bit fed up with electronics, so I'm going to do work on the mechanics first. Yeah, so while I have all this out, I've taken out the like half a dozen more servo extension cables. I have the LED lights, the working ones, the non-working ones I will replace. There have been some solder joints that have broken. Yeah, so and while I'm working at all those cables, I will also reroute some of the cables in the rear. I had, I'm still very happy with the rear section of the grader, but you know, some things just can always be improved a little bit. The maintenance access to those cables is really narrow, so it's basically, depending on how the frame articulation is, you only have this little bit. If you articulate a little bit to the right, then obviously this area will be larger. But I'm going to reroute some of those cables further up here, some on the left side, some on the right side. That's at least the plan. And I might go either sideways into the into this part of the frame, or from this side, from the back. So we'll see, and that should give me, that should leave more room to the cables, less risk of pinching. A little bit more airflow. I don't want to have another short circuit, because it's a little bit scary if your machine that you've worked several hundred hours on suddenly starts to smoke. So yeah, yeah, I think that's most of that. I'm also going to revisit this snake pit. How exactly? I don't know. I might create a wire loom, like, you know, from full-scale automotive applications, or I might do something else, but at least not as chaotic as it is now. I've been wondering what to do with my batteries, so currently I'm still using these 4300 milliamp hour nickel metal hydride sub-C cells. Quite happy with them, I have to say. They've lasted me a long time. I use them in my garden lawn trimmer as well, the very same ones. And yeah, back when I bought those, they were, well, they might not have been the smartest, but, you know, as I said, you want to have the weight, so there's really no reason to go with lipos in an earth mover. Lipos are more delicate, so they don't like to be short-circuited or exposed to water. So, you know, all good reasons to go with nickel metal hydride, but now looking at how the prices are for lipo batteries, it really becomes difficult to go with nickel based technologies. Maybe I go with lithium iron phosphate. I don't know, but of course these batteries come in a different form factor. So the whole grader is designed around this setup. And then the bonnet. The bonnet goes, or the hood goes over here. And I've been wondering if I'm modifying the cables anyway. Should I lay those receivers down and then have different, or I can then put different form factor batteries in there. For example, the 3-cell LiPos, which are sometimes relatively long but thin. Although if I go for lithium iron phosphate 18650 battery shape, then maybe something as I have now would be more flexible. So these are all things that I consider, but to be honest, the battery side of things is currently the least of my worries. I want to do away with all those extension cables, so I'm going to obviously I need to change servos. You don't want to have a servo at the front of the greater brake and then not have any joints. So there will be of course one joint, but those extension cables need to be, or I want them to be the right size, so that they go to the receivers. All those connectors are of course always a problem. It's difficult to service that, and yeah, it's quite untidy, and as you can see, this snake pit, there's not actually, well, there are there are half a dozen of ESCs in there, and a BSC, so there's quite a bit of stuff in there, but much of it is connectors, professional type of clamping connectors, as well as things that you usually only see in house installation. Those connector blocks here, Lüsterklemmen in German, and yeah, so there's some room for improvement on the mechanical side, on the electric side, and on the electronic side, and I just got rid of the letter R. This front axle I'm still really happy with, the leaning and steering. If I get the motors to work, and specifically if I get the brushless motors to work, which are really short, I will be able to improve the front axle, improve in the sense that I can maintain the 45 or 50 degree steering angle, but get the wheel lean function to be a bit more sturdy. Currently the servo has to hold against the weight of the machine that tries to put it back into neutral. So I'm thinking of building a little worm servo to keep that. But that of course means then that at this point I'm not 100% sure how this all will look, because I don't know which type of motor I'm going to use, and I'm not going to know, I don't know yet what type of servo I'm going to use. So this whole block is uncertain, and that means that the new center section that I'm building will be connected for the time being to the existing front piece, and once I have made up my mind how the front end is going to look, this is going to be redone as well. And then you might say, why are you taking apart your grader? You could have just built two. That's exactly right. That's kind of the idea. I have the rear end of my first iteration, so to say, and once I have redone the front end, then I have basically two machines. I don't plan that the second machine will also be a grader, but it will also be 6x6, and yeah, I don't know if if it will work, but no, the work that I have put in here will not be for naught. It works well. I just want this grader to be kind of like using the best parts, the best sub-assemblies I have made, and then I can use some of the other parts for other vehicles that I have planned. Okay, so considering that this was supposed to be a 5-minute video, I have been rambling on quite substantially. Yeah, as you can appreciate, there's a lot of work. You know, it's little things, routing those light cables. You need holes in the frame. You need to mount them. And I have these parts. I want to move them from the old to the new. I also don't want to make too many compromises. So quite a bit of thinking I will have to do. But well, I'm quite glad that I've made that step. Yeah, so don't be surprised if it'll be a while until you get to see a driving video from this grader. But I hope to update you in the not too distant future about the progress on the mechanical side of things. And yeah, let me know what you think, and thank you for watching.